All you business people, you got a product that you're passionate about. Well, get with the most passionate guy in sports radio. Do it right now. That's PK. I want to sell your product. I want you. I'm making money. That I guarantee you. Here's what you do. You text 57500, and our sales staff will take care of the rest. Now, you got to text PK to 57500. Text PK 57500. You got a product. Let us move it for you. Make some money, man. Let's team up and be a winner. Yeah. Family on 3.
Just throwing random phrases together there at the end.
Family money on 3.
Family money on 3. Let's spend it.
Let's do it, man. I'm here for you. I've always been here. You can count on me for over 20 years. And I ain't ending anytime soon.
Ain't. Irregardless.
Some words, they morph into words that weren't words, but now they're words.
Austin Ainge scheduled to join us momentarily. Utah Jazz president of basketball operations. Where are the Jazz going from here? How will this be rebuilt?
Up, up, and away in my beautiful balloon.
What has that got to do with anything?
You said where they're going. Up, up.
And away?
Away from the rest of the Western Conference pretenders. 2030 is going to be a great year.
Circle it.
Yeah. I think like Sports Illustrated, didn't they predict like 4 or 5 years before when Houston, the Astros won it?
Yeah, they did.
They got it right.
They got in on that one.
Yeah.
They did.
So I'm calling it.
They got in early on Houston.
2030-31. Just remember, the old man said.
2030, the Jazz will be good again. Major League Baseball will expand. College football will reorganize and shuffle the deck on conference realignment.
Ohio State coming to Rice Eccles. Mark it down.
2030 will be a whole different world.
We should do that for this summer. 5-year out predictions. What will happen in sports in 2030?
A 32-team Big Ten. They're going full NFL all by themselves.
I don't think that will happen. I think that would turn off people.
All right, 2014 Big Ten.
There could be a 2014 Big Ten and a 2014 whatever. And so good things are going to happen here, man.
Kessel will be 28, right in his prime.
Wow, that's amazing. He'll only be 28. That's crazy.
Will he still be here?
Yeah. I mean,
5 years in the NBA is a long time.
Oh, unless he doesn't want to be or has some injury or something. Yeah, I think he has a skill that can. Guys like him.
Oh, he'll be. No, I'm not questioning him being in the NBA. I'm talking about him being here. I mean, trades happen. Players move around more than ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Understood. I don't know if players move around more than ever. That would be an interesting study to see if that's what level of player movement is there compared to the 90s, the 80s.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. All right, DJ and PK. Time to welcome in Austin Ainge, Utah Jazz president of basketball operations. Austin, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Does that sound weird? Have you adjusted to that yet?
It does feel weird. It does feel weird. I'm just happy to hear you guys are still in the air all these years. Congrats. It's amazing.
So
we get that a lot from people who come back.
I went over to talk to him after the press conference and told him that. And seriously, PK looks at me and goes, no. Like, yeah, here we are.
I was surprised you guys are both alive.
Oh, nice.
On the air still.
Thank you. Hey, we're younger than your father, big guy.
And you look great.
Not by much.
So you made the news. You answered the question everybody wanted to hear, but that leads to a whole series of questions. Are the Jazz going to tank again? And you're very definitive in your answer there. It's already clipped in our system, and I think Yak's already played it like 3 times this morning. So that you'll hear that over and over again.
You won't see that this year.
There it is. You won't see that this year. But people wonder what that means, and I know you can't show all the cards right now, but the team could get younger. You could make moves, and younger teams don't tend to win a lot. The team could win a lot more games. When you say that, what are you thinking? Where do you want to see the team to go this year? How is this likely to play out? Because taking you at face value, it could still play out several different ways.
Yeah, and I think we have to keep all of those different ways on the table. The optionality, we have to find value, and we have to make smart moves. And so I don't know how it'll play out, to be honest. It's still too early. We'll have to see what opportunities present themselves to us. But if you go back to the question that was asked before that soundbite, it was asked in a specific way, and I responded to that. We're gonna fight to the end. We're gonna let the group, whatever group we end up with, fight, and we're gonna let Will Hardy fight and try to win and improve, and we're gonna do everything we can every night. So that's kind of the question I was answering.
It seemed like that you had prior conversation. You said it so definitively that it wasn't something that just popped into your mind, that you had previous discussions maybe along the hiring process. Is that accurate?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, these are the things you discuss when considering taking a job.
Are you worried about losing the draft pick? Much has been made of the fact that Oklahoma City, depending on how things shake out, could get that pick. How important is a pick in a draft that's supposed to be this good coming up in another year? And I realize it's a year beyond the 1 year you're scouting on right now. How big a factor is that when you're making these decisions?
It's a huge factor. It's a huge factor, but there are many other factors to consider, right? The toll it takes on a team in an organization to only think about that pick, right? The effect it has on all the other moves and decisions you make. So there are a lot of other things to consider besides the pick. The pick is really important, and obviously, no one wants to just give away first round picks. But there are a lot of other things to consider, and that's what we're trying to do.
The last 2 years, the Jazz have had 3 picks. I say 3 first-round picks each. I know Filipowski was early second round, but it's barely in the second round. Plus, he played like a first-rounder. I'm sure you already know that. And, we were anticipating leading up to each draft that there would be moves, but the organization chose to keep the picks, take the players. By and large, I think they've been good, and we know Taylor Hendricks had the injury. Cody Williams, he needs to literally grow up and get more just get his body in better condition to be able to compete, bigger and stronger, all those things. So it looks like you got those 6 players. Now you got a couple of picks this year in the first round. I believe you have 2 in the second, and you can't provide any definitive answers. But do you have an idea of whether those picks will be kept, or maybe there's an opportunity to make moves?
I mean, I'm going to listen to everything. I just got into this job, so it's all kind of moving fast, PK. But I believe, by far the most likely scenario is we draft the picks. But you never know what offers come in. Got to stay ready.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of young guys here. Have you followed these guys yourself for a long time? I know teams scout each other. You're preparing for trades and all that. How deep a dive have you taken on Jazz players, and how much do you think you still have to learn about the current roster?
I follow them pretty close, and obviously even before they were members of the Jazz, followed them, but there's nothing like working with people every single day. So I will spend a lot of time talking with the people in the building on what they see and talking with the players themselves, right? So there's more information to be gathered for sure.
Drafting is a lot like recruiting in college, to where a coach and his staff, they have to project, because you're taking a 17, 18-year-old and you want to develop him into a 20, 21-year-old, and that could be a significant difference. Same type of concept here with the NBA draft. You're drafting maybe an 18, 19, 20-year-old, but the idea is to project it down the road when he's 24, 25, 26, and so forth. For you, how much of a challenge is that to be able to look at a kid now and have some ability to see the future and what that individual can become?
It's really hard. It's really hard. We all do as much work as we possibly can, and it's an educated guess. It's certainly a difficult thing. I usually tell the story of when Doc Rivers was our coach in Boston, and his son, Austin Rivers, was in the draft and a highly rated player. And our whole organization knew Austin since the time he was 4 years old all the way up. We'd seen everything, and we still weren't sure. That's how hard this is. And that's why building an NBA team, you have the draft, which is hard. You're going to have some misses. It's kind of like hitting in baseball. The worst is 250 and the best is 350, right? It can be that narrow. Anyway, it can be that difficult. But you have trades and you have free agency. And so you have to kind of use all the tools to build the team because the draft is so uncertain.
This is an odd, one-of-a-kind situation here with you following your dad, and already so many people have moved from one organization to another. But are you coming by yourself? Are you bringing other people with you? Should we expect more staff changes?
No, really happy with the staff here. And we got a draft and free agency just a few weeks away here. So I'm going to jump in with this group of which I do have a lot of previous relationships with. There's only 30 NBA teams, so we all know each other really well and deal with each other. And there are some people I've worked with previously, obviously Will Hardy, who I'm super excited to partner with. And he has a few people on his staff that I worked with in Boston, including Joe Mazzulla's brother, the assistant general manager of the Jazz, Shane Fensky, I worked with for many years in Boston. So anyway, there's a lot of people and a lot of great people to work with, and I'm going to just roll with this group and figure it out.
Do you look for specific things when you're drafting a player, whether that be height, length, jump shot, I don't know, whatever goes into it? Is there some things that are just must-haves when you look to take a player?
There are a lot of things that you look at. I try everything I can. This is a boring answer to not have hard and fast rules because there are just players that break them, right? There are short players that do great. There are slow players that do great. There are non-shooters that find a way to do great. But it's really the combination. It has to add up. But character, hard work, competitiveness. I would say those types of things, the less physical measurement items, I would focus on more and have a little bit stronger rules on.
Are you as patient as your dad?
I don't know how much time you've spent with him. I'm not sure I would call him patient.
In regard to making moves, he's got a reputation for waiting people out on trades and that kind of stuff. Let's just stay there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we worked together for 14 years. I found him to be pretty aggressive. But yeah, I mean, look, he drives a hard bargain in the past and all of that. And look, there are lots of things to learn there. Trades are difficult. It has to work for both teams, but I plan on being on the more aggressive side. But that can mean nothing happens for a year. It could mean something happens next month. It's just, you never know. Got to stay ready and find the right opportunities and the right value.
What's your confidence level in being able to find guys that are, not stars? You look at what the Oklahoma City Thunder have, those role players coming off the bench, Caruso and maybe even a Lou Dort, who was an undrafted free agent. I know he starts. But those types of guys, you need to have them. And I'm wondering, I've read some stuff since you got the job that you were a part of that and bringing in guys that could help you that weren't necessarily big name guys. So I'm wondering your confidence level and be able to add that to the Jazz.
That's a huge part of the job. And the other part that that you didn't mention is the development by the coaching staff.
Sure.
You work together with them, and you do your best to find the diamonds in the rough and the guys who are undervalued or underdrafted, and you work with them and the coaching staff and see if you can't develop them into being winning players. But that's the job. That's the job. It's not just drafting the 5th pick overall. It's drafting the 43rd pick or the undrafted guys or the two-ways and seeing if you can't find some guys. We have a big staff of really smart people. We're doing everything we can to do that.
Does the world of NIL and the way things are changing college basketball, does that help you prepare? I mean, a lot of these guys are handling a lot of money, and as much as drafting is about physical, you got to get people with the right mental makeup to handle the money and the celebrity and spotlight, and college players are getting that in a way. Well, let's just say they didn't get that a couple decades ago, as you well know.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I've noticed a big difference yet, but we're early in this process with NIL in this era. I haven't seen it, but it's possible. It's possible they could come in a little more prepared.
Back in my beat writer days when I was with newspapers and covering teams on a daily basis, I would see guys like, as you call them, DA. They'd show up in the press room, whether it be in Las Vegas or wherever, and you'd see that they would be in-person scouting. How much do you intend to do that as far as being on the road to get your own eyewitness view of potential players?
It's what I've lived the last 17 years of my life, and I plan to continue. I believe in both. You have to watch a lot of film. But I believe in seeing in person. I think it helps. It helps me anyway. So I will do a lot of that all over the world, pounding the pavement, shaking the bushes, finding anything I can to find an advantage.
The Pacers were in the lottery just a couple of years ago, and obviously we haven't had had 6 different champions in 6 years. You have been doing this for more than a decade, but do you feel like the rules have changed, how quickly teams are being built and how short their window is to win and how quickly they're being taken apart?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the collective bargaining agreement. It kind of forces quicker rebuilds and quicker kind of dismantlings. You just can't spend into the tax, and they have these aprons now. So everything is a little bit different. It all happens quicker.
Well, is it fair to say it's a dream come true for you? Because I know you've worked on it for a long time, and I remember talking to you when you were a player that this is something that you wanted to do. It's really cool to see from our perspective that you got it and you put your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, and got the job done. I'm wondering if you're looking at it like that. Absolutely.
No, absolute dream come true. I've been grinding in the G League and in, gyms in Serbia and Lithuania, finding guys that this is what I love. This is my passion. I'm so excited to do this with Ryan and Ashley Smith and Will Hardy and all the people in the Jazz. I've been interviewing for these jobs the last few years. I actually had some others to talk to this summer, actually. Anyway, I've been exploring and looking at these opportunities, and this one just felt right because of the people involved and the timing in my life.
Well, Austin, congratulations and good luck. And later this month, we can't wait to see what you do with the draft.
Thanks, guys. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you too, Austin. We appreciate it. Thank you. There's Austin Ainge, the new Jazz president of basketball operations.
I'm excited for him.
Gyms in Serbia and Lithuania.
And these are things I knew.
And
I'd heard.
And there's players out there.
Right.
You got to go find them.
Sure. Yeah,
whether you're finding a role guy like Joe Ingles or you're finding an MVP and a champion in the Adriatic League, the way the Denver Nuggets did with the Joker.
Yeah.
You got to look. There are players everywhere. They actually were talking, I think it was Ryan who said it during the press conference, but maybe it was Austin, but talking about every continent. You got to be in Asia. You got to be in Australia. You got to be in Europe. Obviously, you have to be in North America. Is the next Manu Ginobili growing up in South America, inspired by watching Manu Ginobili? I mean, you never know.
You don't. And the good thing about it is that, he's got the name. I get that. And people are going to point to that. And I get it. You can't avoid it. and that helps you get in. But I mean, I've known this. I want to call him a kid, but he's not a kid anymore. I know what he's been doing this whole time, and he's prepared for this job. Does that mean he's going to have success? Well, I don't know. I hope so. I'll be the first to admit I want him to succeed. I like the guy, and I want the team to win because it's more fun to do that. But if it were a guarantee, then it would be easy. But it's not easy. It's super hard to do these things, and it's like, oh my gosh, if they get to that point, it's going to be unbelievable. Can they get there? I think they can, and they've got to make these right moves, though. These next 2 to 3 years are going to determine so much for the next 12 to 15 years. So much is riding on this. It's exciting.
I don't know if that's true.
I believe it is.
It might be. The next 2 to 3 years determine the next 12 to 15.
It can. It might not, but it can.
Yeah,
yes.
just the way teams are spinning. They're just spinning so fast up and down. I mean, it seemed like the Suns were terrible, and suddenly they were in the NBA Finals.
They sucked making moves. That's my point.
And suddenly they're terrible again.
And if they make the right moves, they wouldn't have been terrible.
But I just don't know that good or bad moves can do you for 12 or 15 years. Or do you?
Yes, it can.
3 years later, just boom, you're back at it again.
Look at Charlotte. Look at the crap decisions that Jordan has made. That has doomed them virtually for eternity. And then New Orleans drafts Zion Williamson. Bust. It's not there.
But see, I think the Jordan thing was stacking bad decisions. I don't know that any one decision got him for a decade.
I didn't say a singular decision.
Okay. All right. It's more like, 20 bad decisions, 2 per year. Got them there for a decade.
I think it's undisputed. I'm actually surprised you want to argue this. The decisions you make determine the next 10 years. And especially with this team right now, because they have so many options. The world is their oyster in terms of options. And they have to hit on like 75% of them. And if they do, they've got something really good. If they don't, it's going to be Charlotte. It's going to be Washington.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
That's the advantage to BYU, though. It's not just Provo, Utah. It's Salt Lake City. It's Las Vegas.
There are.
It's
I'm
Southern
sure they
California.
have donors all over the country.
It's Burley, Idaho.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they went from we can't recruit anybody to we can recruit anybody. And you know what? You'll go live the honor code. If you're getting paid $5-6 million, Ben, I'll go live the honor code right now for that kind of dough.
Whatever AJ DeBonsa's making for 6 months. Okay. Yeah, I'll put a suit on.
It's crazy. They got plenty of money. And honestly, it's going to be a disadvantage for Utah.
It's going to be a disadvantage for everybody. If you aren't one of those schools and they don't regulate it to put a cap on how much you can spend, it's a setback for every other team. It will slay some giants.
Kook fans should be like, keep the Wild West. Call Mike Lee. Get him on the horn. Tell him, don't do anything.
Yeah, don't do it. What are you,
Don't
crazy?
do anything. Yeah.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Greg Wyshynski, senior NHL writer for ESPN. Greg, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? I'm in Edmonton now. I'm looking out at a beautiful vista, which is a parking lot filled with construction vehicles. I am very much not in Fort Lauderdale yet, which I will be later in the series, but I am definitely in Edmonton.
That was quite the vista you painted. I'm glad we can all share in the view there.
It's not Hawaii, but what the heck?
it's not the Maui Classic, that's for sure. All right, so we obviously have a new NHL team here, and it's going through a rebuild. So let's look at the Stanley Cup final through the lens of a team that would like to get there one day, but is still probably a few steps away. What lessons should teams that are building learn as they watch this final? What can the Oilers and Florida Panthers teach us all about building a quality team in the NHL?
It's a really good question. I mean, these two teams are a little dissimilar in how they were built. So Edmonton was in the tank for like a decade. Like they had a lot of they had so many first overall picks that they actually changed the rules on how many first overall picks you're allowed to have in like a 3 or 4 year span. That's how many they had. A lot of those guys aren't on the team anymore, but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are. And they also drafted their best defenseman, Evan Bouchard, and their goalie, Stuart Skinner, and their second best defenseman, Darnell Nurse. Like, there's a ton of players on this Edmonton team that are homegrown that they then augmented with veteran players like Matthias Ekholm and Corey Perry and Evander Kane and others. So that's one way to do it, which is to be horrible for 10 years, and then eventually you land on a core that is as good as any we've seen maybe since Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in Pittsburgh. Florida, their best player is Sasha Barkov, their captain, and he was drafted. And their top defenseman, Aaron Ekblad, was drafted. But then so many other players that are on this team that won the Cup last year were imported through really smart trades by their GM, Bill Zito. You think about Sam Reinhart, their top-line winger, Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, now Seth Jones, Brad Marchand. Sergei Bobrovsky famously was a huge money signing as a free agent. So the core, Paul Maurice, their coach, called Barkov kind of like the sun around which all of the other things orbit. So it still comes back to how you draft in both cases. But for Florida, it really was kind of a different way of going about things, I think, insofar as like augmenting through trades and through free agency versus what Edmonton did.
You already brought up McDavid. His resume is extremely impressive. It reads like that Partridge in a Pear Tree song. He's got 5 Art Ross trophies, 3 Hart Memorial trophies, a Rocket Richard, and even a Conn Smythe. But he doesn't have the Stanley Cup. So you can argue, a Canadian team, I don't think they've won it, since 93 or something like that. Maybe I think it's like 32 years. And you can argue that, the NHL needs him to win it, and he's got to have a coming out party. I don't necessarily go that strong because he still is only 28 years old and has time. But as far as his legacy and how good he is, he probably needs to get one. Is the time now?
So for the legacy part of it, it's undeniable that, the truly legendary players in this league have won the Cup. I mean, that's just how it is. It's unfortunate. In many cases, it's not a player's fault if he's on
an organization that can't figure it out or what have you. But I mean, this is two trips to the Stanley Cup final. He nearly won it last year in a Game 7. You'd expect if you make back-to-back trips, you're gonna raise the cup at least once. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of his peers have. I mean, Alex Ovechkin got his cup. Nathan McKinnon got his cup. Sid's got a couple. All of those players don't have the caveat when they go into the Hall of Fame of you couldn't win the big one. And for a player like Connor, who is one of the most talented hockey players that's ever lived and will go down as maybe being close to a Gretzky level of talent and statistical accomplishment when it's all said and done, he's got to win one or else there will always be that caveat of you couldn't get the ring. Will it happen this year? I don't know. I just wrote a piece on ESPN.com with my justification for picking the Florida Panthers in 6 games to repeat as champion. I want to see Connor lift the cup more than anything. I covered him last year when he lost in Game 7 and was named MVP in an effort, and I saw the soul sucked out of somebody's body. He was so sad. So I don't want to see him sad again. I want to see him win. I want to see that caveat go away, but I just think that the Florida Panthers are built to beat the Oilers and to win another cup.
Can they play their stars more minutes? Now, games 1 and 2 are a Wednesday, Friday, but they both had a big layoff here. And then there's a lot of 2 days off, play on the third day, 2 days off, play on the third day. Does that enable them to eliminate the minutes for, let's just say some of the guys and put more minutes on the stars?
It's less about the time between games in the final than the time it took some of these teams to win their series. Don't forget, the reason we're playing the Stanley Cup final on Wednesday is because both these teams won in 5 games in the conference final. So that's really where the determination of ice time and the rest and how these guys are feeling is going to come into play is what did you do before you got here? And in the case of both teams, they've had some short series, which will certainly benefit their legs coming into this final round. But
But when it comes to McDavid and Draisaitl in particular, they're going to play until their bodies fall apart in this series as far as their ice time goes. And the key for having home ice advantage in hockey is you then get to determine the matchups on the ice. You get the last line change, and that's going to be a real key thing. It's the biggest difference between this year and last year in this matchup is that Florida had home ice last year. Edmonton has it this year. They're going to be able to find ways to get matchups that are beneficial to McDavid and Draisaitl, meaning that they can get one or both of them as far away from Barkov's line as possible, because that's really the one that you want to avoid if you're Edmonton.
So you're going with the Panthers, as you just said, and I was looking, and they had a panel of like 23 people with ESPN, and 14 of the 23 picked Edmonton. So you're going against the grain in a sense.
I am. I think I didn't know what my colleagues would do as far as their picks. I'm actually surprised it's not more people picking Edmonton. The whole thing kind of feels like their season. The fact that Connor and Leon didn't win last year and have gotten this team back to where it is. It's a better team than it was last year. They've really figured out how to play championship quality defense in a way that they hadn't last season. They limited the Dallas Stars to 4 shots on goal in the third period for 3 consecutive wins. Like that's something. That is a significant improvement defensively for this team. And so there's of like they're due, right? But again, I just look at this matchup and the Panthers are better too. I mean, they added Seth Jones and Brad Marchand. They've become more confident in what they do. I mean, winning a Stanley Cup is incredible proof of concept. And the most important thing in this matchup for me is that, Edmonton has a way of making you feel pretty bad about yourself when things aren't going right. Like Dallas kind of fell apart when they would get down 1-0 in a game, and they kind of fell apart in the third period when they couldn't do the things they wanted to do. Florida's got a really unique talent, and it speaks to their veteran core and their confidence in their game, that they'll just take what you give them, and then they'll take advantage of it. Against Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final, they scored consecutive goals within 4 minutes in every one of their wins, meaning that they just pounce on you when they're given the opportunity. So I think they're patient. I think they're smart. I think they're great defensively. And I think all that adds up to them winning the cup again. But I'd love to be wrong, because I'd love to see Connor lift the cup.
Florida on 98 points and Edmonton on 101. And, the Jets were such a story with the way they started, and they finished on 116 points. And the Capitals pretty much went with them at 111. But does that ever matter in the NHL? I mean, is it just get through the regular season and just get some half-decent seeding, and that's good enough?
I think it used to matter more under the old playoff format. Like when it was, I don't know, but this might be a history lesson here, but it used to be 1 through 8 in the NHL. So like the number 1 seed in the conference would play the number 8 team, and sometimes that syncs up now, and sometimes it doesn't. But it also means that you would have an easier path in the second round than you might have now, where you're kind of locked into playing whoever is the next team in your conference. So if you look at the Atlantic Division, for example, you're looking at the Boston Bruins, the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like these are 3 teams that have all won cups or played for cups over the last decade, and so that's really rough. It's a lot easier to come out of the Pacific Division maybe, or the Central, than it is sometimes the Atlantic. So the seeding used to matter more. I don't disagree with you. And I also think that, no matter what the playoff format looks like, the bottom line is that it's a 7-game sprint, and a 7-game sprint with a goalie that gets hot all of a sudden can lead to upsets. It's one of the reasons why the Stanley Cup playoffs are, I think, the best postseason in sports. Not only the physicality and the quality of play and just the blood, sweat, and tears that go into this thing, but also the unpredictability of it, where it's not always, and traditionally has not been, the best team in the regular season that goes and plays for the cup at the end.
So is Edmonton's Stuart Skinner hot?
I think he is. I think his play last round was overrated a little bit. Dallas was, I don't know what the hell Dallas was doing last round, but I mean, like there was a game where they're like, Skinner's great, and it was a game where Dallas missed the net 40 times and turned the puck over more in 2 periods than they had in any single game in the playoffs. Like it was it was, definitely them falling apart versus anything Skinner was doing. But, they're playing good defense in front of him. And the bottom line for Stuart Skinner is that they don't need him to win a series. They just need him not to lose a series. And I think he's playing well enough right now where he's not going to be the reason that they lose this series. And for him, that's all you can really ask for. But as I pointed out in my piece on ESPN.com this morning, the difference between the two goalies is that Sergei Bobrovsky, the Florida goalie, could win a series. He could be the reason they win. He could be a guy who puts a team on his shoulders for 2 games and wins, and they win because of that. And I think that's a tactical advantage for Florida in the series.
We can talk a lot about the physical matchups, but the mental part of the sport. I mean, Edmonton got down 0-3 last year and then forced a Game 7. Do you think either one of these teams can dominate the other or break them mentally, or is this just a total grind to get to 4 wins, game by game, period by period, shift by shift, and it really is just going to be just a battle of attrition here?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Florida is extremely mentally tough. They're a veteran team, and they're not going to be rattled by really anything. But you bring up a really good point about Edmonton, which is that even if they do get down in the series, I mean, it's less than a year ago where they rallied from a 3-0 deficit and nearly pulled off a Game 7 win against Florida. So, yeah, I don't think either of these teams are really going to get rattled. If it's 2-0 for one of these teams after the first 2 games, I don't think that the other team is going to fold up the tents and start thinking about vacation. It's going to be a really interesting series between 2 teams that are playing with a lot of confidence. I think Edmonton there's a ton of belief in their room right now about what they're doing. And for Florida, I mean, they're the Cup champion, and they're arguably playing better now than they did last season. So it's going to be fascinating.
So are they a dynasty if they win again?
So really, I mean, I've had that debate about several teams over the last 15 years.
Yeah, we love to do that.
But it's hard to really define what a dynasty is under the salary cap. Do you have to win 4 straight cups like the Islanders did in the 1980s, or a bunch of cups in a decade like the Edmonton Oilers did? Or can you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, for example, who won back-to-back Stanley Cups, but then made the final again, and then before that made the conference final a few times? I mean, that's the closest thing to being dynastic that we have. But in the Panthers case, again, it'd be back-to-back cups plus the trip to the final where they lost to Vegas. It's 3 straight trips to the Stanley Cup final. When you think about this league and the constraints by the salary cap and what these teams are able to do and not do insofar as keeping their teams together, it's the closest thing you're going to get to something that resembles a dynasty, I think, is what the Panthers are doing. And if nothing else, I mean, the more interesting conversation might be, how does this team stack up against the ones that we've seen win multiple cups in the last 15 years? Pittsburgh, Chicago, Los Angeles, Tampa Bay. You could make the argument that this Florida team is the best of the lot. I mean, they are such an impressive group and so well put together. And there's not a whole lot of flaws on this team. And that'd be an interesting debate to have if they end up winning again.
PK brought up the Canadian streak. That's to the negative. To the positive, man, Florida and Tampa Bay, there's a lot of Stanley Cup finals happening in the Sunshine State. When's the rest of the East going to break through and handle these guys?
Well, first off, the drought since 1993 has been beautiful as an American hockey fan. Nothing has warmed my heart more than seeing those people miserable about their teams not winning. But it might come to an end pretty soon. I mean, especially if Edmonton wins. But your point about the Floridian teams is an interesting one, because there is an ongoing debate in the NHL right now about the income tax benefits that teams in Florida, Nashville, Vegas, and others have that the Canadian teams don't have. And there's a sense of, these players take less money to play for these teams because they get more money in their pocket because of the tax situation. And is that fair? And it's a whole lot of crying about teams in non-traditional markets winning the Stanley Cup over and over again. If you ask me, I think there's a reason why players just want to play in Florida versus play in Canada, and it's beaches and lovely weather and golf, and also these organizations are really well run, and also they don't have a small army of media people like in Toronto hounding them at all times about how they stink. It's a lot happier life to be in those media markets too. So it's a good point you brought up, which is that, there's a reason why people believe that these quote unquote non-traditional market teams keep winning. But I think there's other reasons why these franchises have been successful other than the economic advantages that they have.
Well, Greg, we appreciate a few minutes. We want to let you get back to you probably like Bob Ross, just painting a picture, looking out that window, and we'll let you get back to your art.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it. Yep, stale hotel coffee, trying to make out the signs in front of fast food places I'm unfamiliar with in Canada. It's really living the dream right now, boys. But it's media day. It's media day today. It should be a lot of fun, and then tomorrow we get this thing going for real, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be a hell of a series between these two teams. They are the best two teams in the league, and it's great to see them advance as far as they have.
He's Greg Wyshynski. He is a senior NHL writer for ESPN, and you can read his work throughout the Stanley Cup Finals. Thank you, Greg.
Anytime. Thanks.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Greg cracked you up a couple times there.
Oh, yeah. He was a good interview. He's got a lot of personality, yeah. I like setting the scene and calling you dude.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. A lot more reaction to Austin Ainge, new Utah Jazz president of basketball operations. He joined us earlier in this hour. We'll get your reaction coming up. Stay with us.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
This show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win tickets to Aerofest with Styx, Kevin Cronin, former lead singer of REO Speedwagon, and Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles. June 11th, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Tickets are on sale now at LiveNation.com. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win.
I'm gonna keep on loving you. I don't want to sleep. I'm just going to keep on loving the Jazz. That's what they say. Even when they say, I'm done with them. No, you're not. This is in your blood. It's in your, and I love that it's in your blood. No, that's nothing wrong with that. It's a crappy part now, and I like that they hired a dude who's got everything to prove. I view myself that way. I've been doing this for a long time, but it doesn't matter what I did. It matters what I'm doing. I got to prove it today. That's why I'm showing you my text thing, if you want, from trying to gather information on what was going down. And Austin alluded to it. I think the Jazz knew that it was either now or he's going to get a job someplace else doing the same thing.
So if they want him,
got to go.
It's go time.
And I know that he thought he had one last year. He was right there to have one. And so he's been interviewing for leadership positions this year, last year. And so that's like a recruit. You don't want to get a recruit that isn't being recruited by anybody. Sometimes they work out. But sometimes the guy who's recruited by 15 major powers doesn't work out. So you never really know. But the fact is, he was a commodity in this league. And he was going to be, in this case, the president, CEO, whatever his basketball ops. He was going to get that job. Whether it was here or someplace else, I am extremely confident in what I've heard that was going to happen. And he basically just told us that, if you listen to him, that was something that was going to go down.
It was right there.
Yeah.
You could hear it.
Yeah.
He'd been pursuing several of them.
Right. And teams have been pursuing him. So the Jazz needed to act in that way. And Ryan Smith decides we're going to make this move now to get this kid, or get this, I got to get away from calling kid, get this man on board. And they did. Now it's go. Work your butt off. And I'm really confident in saying that he will work his butt off. Because sometimes when you've got that name, you then have to work that much harder to prove that the name got me in, but the name didn't keep me in.
But you never get the respect because people look at you because it's the name. Or at least you think people look at you. Who knows?
And I think that's it, the latter part for sure. With
they
him.
don't really think I've done this. I've got to achieve a little more. And the bar is higher.
Right.
And it's a weird change, and it's not really because obviously Austin and Danny are going to talk. So you still have access to Danny's basketball brain.
Yeah, yeah.
But when he came in and, there were parts of the job he didn't want to do that he made clear were being delegated.
Speaking of DA.
To Jay-Z, right? Yes, the Danny Ainge wanted to delegate to Jay-Z, and, he didn't want to do the 80-hour, 70-hour days. And
days? 70-hour days?
Weeks.
Wow.
Long days. Yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it? I'm going to clone myself several times. Can you win on your terms when everyone else is going all out? And it sounds, from what Austin told us, he's going to be going all out. He's talking about
no doubt.
Where he's comfortable is going to this high school gym, going to that gym, and then traveling internationally. He talked about going to gyms in Lithuania and Latvia and wherever else. Serbia, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think I am, I know that works. And I've heard people talk about how that works and that's what you have to do. But it's also true that if you get the right player surrounded by the right handful of players, you can win big. And Danny Ainge was so confident he could do it. I was like, maybe he can do it. Maybe he can. Maybe a lot of this is wasted effort, turning over every stone, and there isn't something under every stone.
Well, you don't know it until you turn it over, I think.
And you don't, right? And as long as we got the Joker in the league, I mean, he just seems to be the ultimate example of that. Playing in a league I had never heard of. I don't think I'd ever heard anyone say or seen anyone write Adriatic League. And yet, there you go. The Nuggets found the guy who finally got them their title. The biggest piece of the puzzle. So having Austin in there, doing it all, and having Danny with his experience sometimes things sound good and they're terrible. And sometimes things sound terrible and they're great. But it sounds good. I don't know if it's going to work out or not. And there's a certain amount of luck to it. Get the number one pick when Duncan's coming out.
Sure. Yeah. But we've got two teams, their best players were drafted double digits.
Oh, yeah. This series is not being shaped by 1, 2, and 3 picks.
That's cool.
Holmgren, yes, he's a 2 pick, right? But most of these guys, I think 4 of the 5 Pacer starters were drafted after the 10th pick, including the guy who looks like the most important one.
Yeah. Right.
And we know the top 2 Thunder players were drafted outside the top 10, and Dort wasn't drafted at all. So we just spent a whole year focused on Cooper Flagg, the end-all, be-all. And maybe he'll turn out to be that.
Yeah, I mean, they still wanted him, and because I believe he's going to be a great player. But the point is, just because you didn't get him doesn't mean you have to go sit in a corner and curl up and feel sorry for yourself.
That's the thing I was trying to make. You like decisions that, for better or worse, will define the next 10 or 15 years. Well, getting Luka Doncic didn't define the next 15 years for Dallas, by choice. But everyone's going to have to make choices down the line. And if they miss, whether it's they miss on bad luck and you drop from 1st to 5th, or you miss because you picked the wrong guy and Steph Curry was on the board.
The Mavs still went to the finals.
They did. They did get that.
That's a successful season.
Yeah.
And then they thought he was overweight and they didn't want to take his conditioning seriously and all that other stuff. So that's another story. But let's not act like he was a bust in Dallas.
Like nothing ever happened?
Yeah.
But he doesn't define the next 15 years. They traded him. So
well, that's what they chose to do. But,
right. Now something else defines it. So,
but the decisions, the point I'm making is decisions define your next NBA generation.
It's what you've always said. No one decision defines everything, but all the little things add up.
Everything matters.
Everything matters. Nothing is everything, but everything is something.
Right. Yes. And they've got so many options available to them that it takes on added importance. It's not like once they drafted the statues and they came of age rather quickly, as a competitive team, they were basically set for the next 15 years. Even if they did nothing, they would still be competitive because you had two Hall of Fame guys in the prime time of their career matching each other, right? And that's exactly what happened. They had many years of competitive ball. They made the playoffs 19 years in a row.
We think that's normal, and it's basically unprecedented.
What you got to do is get in that situation where you are there again and then continue to make some other good decisions. And now they're desperately, feverishly trying to get there. And they've got all these options. Back then, Scott Layden, Kevin, Larry, Jerry, they didn't have that many options. But now this group, when they're not even anywhere close to where that group was, I should say, they have so many options. If they should get there, then they still have a bunch of options. And I believe today's player, maybe back in that day, players were stupid. But I believe players today, I don't care what race, where you're from, they are open to good situations. They're not going to put that cover in front of their eyes and say, I can't go there because I can't party at 2 a.m. I just don't buy that. And if that's that important, you don't want that kid anyway.
In another sport, I know there was a GM who was talking to a player, and the player said, how far is it to Vegas? That red flag went up, that player never came to town.
Right.
As soon as the GM heard, how far is it to Vegas? Never mind. Thanks for saying that and saving me from myself. Next.
Dallas they show this picture. I've seen it multiple times. Michael Finley, who played in the league and is an executive for the Mavericks, after they got to the finals last year, Doncic has a beer in his hand. Finley takes it out.
I know. I posted that when the trade happened. It's a GIF. You can find it out there for Twitter, and it was one of the most disrespectful things. Like, he's a grown man and you're going to the NBA Finals. That just screams, oh, this conditioning and the carbs and all these grams of sugar that you must be consuming all the time for a former player who knows what it means to do that to a player, and he did it anyway.
Right.
Oh, man.
And it probably wasn't the first time, and they've got...
It's been a long-running discussion. And when you see that video, you can't forget it.
And we'll see what Doncic comes back looking like next year.
Well, that's the thing.
We saw when Jokic came back after COVID separation.
Yeah. And those stories are already out there that he's transforming his body. But then I read a story that someone said, and here's all the quotes about him transforming his body. Like, been down this road before. Yeah, well, heard this before in June.
We'll see it.
We'll see if it pays off in December.
That's why they say it's cheap.
Yeah. All right, DJ and BK, it's 97.5, The Zone.